Hannibal was still in Italy. That single fact should have been enough to end Rome. For years, the Republic had lived with a nightmare marching inside its own borders. A commander who had humiliated Roman armies again and again, who had turned Roman confidence into panic, and who had made Rome feel like a giant bleeding from 1,000 cuts. Even when Hannibal wasn't winning every battle anymore, his presence was a living threat, a shadow that forced Rome to spend men, money, and attention just to keep him contained. By 207 BC, the war had reached a brutal stalemate. Hannibal had not taken Rome. Rome had not driven Hannibal out. The conflict was stuck in a grinding balance, where neither side could deliver the final blow. Then Carthage attempted the one plan that could break the stalemate: instantly unite two armies in Italy. Hannibal already had one. All he needed was the other. That other army belonged to his brother, Hasdrubal. And Hasdrubal wasn't coming with a minor reinforcement force. He was coming with a second major Carthaginian army, strong enough to turn Hannibal's long struggle into a final decisive push. If the brothers met, Rome might not survive. That is why the Metaurus matters. It is not just a battle. It is the moment Rome confronts the war's most dangerous what if. The moment Rome stops asking, "How do we endure Hannibal?" and starts asking, "How do we prevent Hannibal from becoming unbeatable?" The strategic picture was terrifying. Hannibal remained in the south, still dangerous, still capable of drawing Roman attention and pinning Roman forces. Rome could not ignore him. If Rome sent everything north, Hannibal could surge forward, raid, destroy weaker Roman positions, and threaten the core again. But at the same time, Hasdrubal was marching from the north, moving to link up with Hannibal for the final kill. Rome was trapped between two fires. This is exactly how empires die, when they cannot be in two places at once, and that was the logic of Carthage's plan. Rome's greatest strength was its ability to recover and mobilize after disasters. The best way to break that strength was to force Rome into impossible choices, to stretch it until it snapped. So, Rome had to gamble. Fight Hasdrubal before he meets Hannibal, even while Hannibal remains alive in the south. Or hold Hannibal down and allow Hasdrubal to join him, creating a combined Carthaginian force too large and too lethal to contain. There was no comfortable option. If Rome chose wrong, the Republic could be finished. Hasdrubal understood what he needed: movement and coordination. He needed to cross into Italy, send messages to Hannibal, synchronize a rendezvous, and turn two separate threats into one overwhelming force. But here is the cruel twist: the turning point at Metaurus is not only about swords and spears. It is about communication. The brothers needed to connect physically, but also informationally. Hannibal needed to know where to meet. Hasdrubal needed to know where Hannibal was positioned. They needed to coordinate across hostile territory filled with Roman scouts, Roman allies, and Roman intelligence. Rome, in this moment, had one advantage Carthage could not replicate easily: it controlled much of the interior. It controlled the road network. It controlled the local intelligence environment. It could move faster inside its own terrain if it was willing to take risks. And Rome's greatest weapon was tempo. At its best, Rome did not only fight harder, it moved smarter. It used coordination as a weapon. It used speed to turn enemy plans into disasters. In this crisis, Rome had two key commands: one force keeping Hannibal contained in the south, and another force positioned to confront Hasdrubal in the north. Metaurus would be decided by whether those commands could behave as one body at the decisive moment. That required something that sounds impossible: a secret march. Speed under exhaustion. Discipline strong enough to move without advertising it to Hannibal. Deception strong enough to keep Hannibal guessing. If Hannibal realized Rome had weakened its southern front, he could strike immediately and make Rome regret the gamble. So Rome's plan was brutal, daring, and simple in essence: shift strength north fast enough to destroy Hasdrubal, before Hasdrubal could reach Hannibal. Then return attention to Hannibal with the war fundamentally changed. Because once Hasdrubal is gone, Hannibal is alone again. And if Hannibal is alone, Rome can breathe. The Metaurus campaign becomes a race between Carthaginian reunion and Roman interception. A race between two armies becoming one and a state preventing that union through speed and control. In wars, interception is often easier than people think if you control the interior and you are willing to gamble. To defeat Hannibal, Rome learned to refuse panic. To save Rome at Metaurus, it had to accept risk on purpose. Hasdrubal's march created the kind of situation that ends empires. Two major enemy armies in the same theater are not just double the threat. They multiply it. They create pincer possibilities and force the defender to split attention. Split attention weakens. Weakness breaks. Carthage understood this. That's why Hasdrubal's mission mattered more than any single battle Hannibal had already won. Hannibal could bleed Rome, but a united Carthaginian force could finish it. Rome understood it too, so the response wasn't only fight Hasdrubal. It was prevent the brothers from becoming one force. And to do that, Rome needed speed and secrecy, two things incredibly hard to maintain with thousands of men on Italian roads. Hannibal in the south remained a loaded weapon. If Rome weakened the southern front too much, Hannibal could surge forward and smash a suddenly smaller Roman force. Worse, Hannibal could realize what Rome was doing and exploit the gap. Hannibal's genius was reading Roman patterns. Rome needed to keep its pattern from changing visibly. So Rome's plan required deception. The remaining forces in the south had to behave as if nothing changed, maintain camp rhythm, patrol presence, visual signals, and confidence. Meanwhile, a portion of Rome's strength moved north in a hard march, fast, disciplined, and likely with minimal baggage. This sprint north, often associated with the consul Nero, becomes one of the most daring operations of the war. Rome gambled that Hannibal would not detect the reduction in time because the northern battle had to be decided quickly, before Hannibal could adapt. Meanwhile, Hasdrubal needed one thing: connection. A message to Hannibal. A planned rendezvous. A point where the brothers could unite. But in hostile territory, messengers are vulnerable. One interception can change history. This is why communication is one of the hidden main characters of Metaurus. The Carthaginian plan depended on messages traveling safely. The Roman plan depended on denying synchronization. If Hasdrubal became uncertain about where Hannibal was, he would slow down. If he slowed down, Rome gained time. If Rome gained time, it could concentrate force. Concentrated force is Rome's greatest advantage. As the Roman reinforcements reached the northern Roman command, the balance shifted. But Hasdrubal could not realize too early that the Roman force was larger than expected. If he realized, he might evade, retreat, or choose better terrain. Rome needed surprise, and surprise at the strategic level is created by arriving faster than the enemy believes possible. That's what the sprint achieved. Hasdrubal expected to face a single Roman army. Instead, he faced a Roman concentration, two commands behaving as one. By the time he sensed something wrong, he was already under pressure. Retreat in hostile territory is rarely clean. Rivers, terrain, and Roman pursuit can trap movement. Once forced to fight, you no longer choose whether to fight, only how well you fight. So the stage was set. Hasdrubal in the north, seeking Hannibal, but facing a stronger Roman force than expected. Hannibal still in the south, dangerous, and not fully aware of Rome's shift. Rome gambling that Hannibal would not strike in time. The north had to be won before the south exploded. When armies meet after a race, they don't meet on equal terms. One side arrives believing the plan still lives. The other arrives knowing the plan must die today. That imbalance was the Metaurus. Hasdrubal crossed into Italy carrying the possibility of joining Hannibal and turning a long war into a decisive strike. Rome could not allow that possibility to survive. Massacre was not a normal engagement. Rome's goal was not merely to win. It was to erase Hasdrubal's army completely, because leaving it alive meant leaving Hannibal's hope alive. Terrain matters immediately. Rivers constrain movement and retreat. Even if the river isn't directly behind an army, it shapes crossings and escape options. An army pressed near a river in hostile territory can begin to feel trapped. The landscape becomes a wall. Add the second constraint, uncertainty. Hasdrubal needed information and coordination, but in hostile territory messengers fail. When messages fail, plans become guesses. By the time Hasdrubal faced Rome, he was operating in partial knowledge and growing suspicion that something was wrong. Something was wrong. Rome had concentrated power in the north. Carthage tried to win through reunion. Rome tried to win through interception. Interception is often the more reliable strategy when you control interior routes. Rome had roads, allies, scouts, and familiarity. Hasdrubal had strength, but he was a visitor in a land filled with enemies. Hasdrubal could not afford to lose. Rome could not afford to let him escape. Both sides fought for permanence. Hasdrubal's army was hardened and capable, but strength only matters if you can apply it where it counts. The Romans kept cohesion, held reserves, and sought a turning move, a lever that could break the Carthaginian structure rather than simply grind it. This is why flank pressure is so deadly. Soldiers can tolerate pressure in front, but when they sense pressure from the side, they begin to feel surrounded. That feeling triggers panic. Panic triggers retreat. Retreat triggers rout. Once Rome's pressure began to turn the Carthaginian flank, Hasdrubal's army entered a psychological crisis. Commands became harder to hear, movement became messy, and messy retreat near constraining terrain becomes lethal. That's when the word massacre becomes believable. Because once the line breaks, an army becomes individuals. Romans, still organized, can pursue in groups, cut routes, trap clusters, and turn retreat into annihilation. Hasdrubal's mission did not allow a clean second attempt. The window closed in blood and dust. Hasdrubal fell, and his army was destroyed. The brothers would not unite. The northern reinforcement was gone. Rome could breathe again. But Rome still had to communicate victory. Hannibal still had to learn his last hope was dead. The psychological ending of this campaign becomes a message, and the message changes the war. When the battle ended, Rome didn't just win a field. Rome won time. In the Second Punic War, time was everything. Hannibal's presence kept Rome tense, exhausted, and pinned. As long as Hannibal remained dangerous, Rome could not relax. Carthage's plan was to break Rome's endurance by adding Hasdrubal, creating a united force that could finally force a decisive outcome. Massacre destroyed that future. It killed the possibility of reunion. It killed the dream of two brothers uniting in Italy. It killed the last strategic scenario where Hannibal could force Rome into collapse. That is why Massacre is called the battle that saved Rome. If Hasdrubal had reached Hannibal, Rome would have faced catastrophic risk. Massacre removed that worst disaster before it arrived. For Hannibal, the loss meant strategic death. His Italian campaign depended on hope that Rome would crack. Alliances would fall, politics would collapse, and reinforcements would arrive to restore decisive momentum. Rome did not crack. Rome adapted. It stopped offering Hannibal easy annihilation battles. It rebuilt armies. It tightened control. Hannibal remained dangerous, but his options narrowed. Hasdrubal was the plan to restore those options. Massacre removed them. When Hannibal learned his brother was dead and the northern army was destroyed, the war's meaning changed. Hannibal might still win fights, but the path to victory was gone. Victory requires options. Massacre removed the options. Hannibal became a survivor, not a conqueror. For Rome, the gamble succeeded. Rome risked leaving Hannibal alive in the south to crush Hasdrubal in the north. That required secrecy, speed, and coordination. If Hannibal had struck in time, Rome could have paid dearly. But he didn't. Hasdrubal didn't reach him. Rome's interior coordination won the race. Hannibal had genius, but Rome had system resilience. The war didn't end instantly, but initiative shifted. Carthage's ability to reinforce Hannibal at scale was shattered. Rome could now tighten pressure in other theaters. Hannibal's future became defensive. Hold, survive, delay. Delay is what you do when the path to winning is gone. Metaurus saved Rome by ending the last hope that could have destroyed it. The brothers would not unite. The pincer would not close. The future Hannibal waited for would never come. And in a war where Rome's survival depended on preventing one decisive catastrophe, prevention was victory.